Um,
You're live, right?
yeah, well, no.
Yeah, let's mute.
The advantages food patents are currently used as a form of enclosure, eradicating local seed variety legal response for being developed lactose section undermined their use Jenny 22. It perceived as also also has seeds of agricultural control 60% of seed varieties for production traits and these systems. It perceives out there seeds of most we can hybrid average to be cover protect for another season seeds for a second method performance accepted environment serious relations with defense people also like here to see if I can information right establishing my IP responsibility for farmers having to the creation of the Industrial agriculture enterprises stubbornly unsustainable modern cultures, pesticides and petrochemicals are all driving existential predicament that only the economy can solve. 2024. Scenario 1 sustainability and varietal seed diversity is collapsing extinction millennium 21. Acne succession of diversity related to chemical knowledge of environment and differential of agriculture and combination agriculture essential to thrive in equal levels of the streams of all the digital seed markers and chapters of agriculture knowledge international varieties of genes and species bureaus and diverse varieties seeds seed knowledge genes varieties of interrelated diversity on form and allow crops to evolve the bodies is single cause industrial varieties monoculture susceptible to climate stress. Diversity is the only shop in adapting food system, climate, and water change throughout the 21. Diversity food easier to work quantity and quality of food one shop at the sense of the other. What is achieved diversity quality as the enemies of soil food species and climate diversity of climate solid overall to the beneficial and water stressor a stream comes in diversity such a boost your diversity of chemicals and improvements on the capacity should not include all decision corporations under the seed market. Scenario 2 is add market power spice seed prices to make power and dependency that ripples to broader food markets in 21. Hazard was really shooting also seeing damaging and was damaging from just seeing the high long-term chilling for security was rolling well on seed prices. I think we're going to run it down to oxygen insurance boost security the right of research to see the non-performance of payment ever cause a higher price of exchange income to already protect the visiting or already has especially if it is already and so support of studying the seaside and already imitated anybody who's supposed to analyzing the implementing licenses are complex. Shocks to a global and nuclear global 22. First, regular government balance security of the prison on these mass works and I'll take advantage of the training takes and put over your version trying to use in Europe food will be critical for worse being clear. Plan the United States federal government should protect the rights of individuals holding intellectual property and farmer developed research and impose copyleft terms on its use onto solvency. The plan codifies copyleft for biological materials and IP regime that serves as a baseline for open source licensing copyleft seed licenses grant broad rights to use seeds on the condition that the user surrenders the right to enclose resulting seed varieties. Ban over wall 18. Public person we can make it from cities that levels other same social getting sure information these and local out here to have the students to hardly cover and representation for the user rights to university the only cover against the levels of contract for the first one against the point of the attached to resources rather than only parties of the users receiving users for the much of the debating contract where some of citizens everyone including in the order much like most community like well contract level on the social service obligation on the obligation for the protection policy not very moving the record sharing behavior the function of the other than the protect by aviation on terms of the first round of the domain of the last first round of the something universal sustainable openness and person of every level of government IP request accident IP just have licenses. I love licensing is a key step to prevent abuse of U.S. IP law and privatize the environment and enables cooperation under food sovereignty practices internationally to WIT-19. Great, I was listen to let me not appropriate proceed also to all watch 263 seasons of so much property innovation all the city by city comes to market so important to my use of and such writing on the corporate every precinct money for the so the game of the scene of the conference of the purpose of how the system of structure the new material things special use initiative already also has been used people and needing things about the also some hyperbatic Germany system of the EU purposes and more as peaceful and legal see what you think for purpose of how many of the city also not all the coverage happening of the language of the government of the works of the city of the Yes, our right to access places from the areas when you can remove to the summit of the society, even those that are ready to come to our particular or ready to come say, can I hear about some population operations and valuable, society movements and purpose of wellness, synergy with the track right now, other purpose of promise matters of the system, prices being like, say, the individual is information, and also some given the different, that possibility of not structured burning, watching collapse. Legal unification of open source seed rights is a key to protecting genetic resources from enclosure OTNO and Westfall 18. Seed protection center that makes small performance of an IP is increased responsibility and which side by the security rules and how much of the present general and able to face it and compromise to use a general security for the systems for self and any short video reputation and most information for customers to have control varieties on the event from like release of the accident specific provisions of emergencies of protecting from the public domain from ownership and patenting. That's key. The effectiveness of OSIS is compromised because legislating has not been had by legal action for 2021. About to start people on media share me about when to go and think this from somebody see not like people companies sharing this regular characteristics of the building appear to convince you about taking a couple of overcome barriers from change responsibilities and by the crops and company viruses and the best of all around overseas and qualifications they want accuracy of centralized and movement with political society ag when subject to over so let's people first organize society around the global world because every year see those that we want to know so the so I can record readers who first go through her supernatural more than let's see society about forcing legal means under the sound shows IPRs. And US is a key local enclosure, Howard 15. Secret testing with 0% reading from the 28% pronunciation and reduces and raises safety and commodity 30% alien support and percentage of the rate and it's a process of this like promotion for president of the US and 8% proceed on combined with the nature of the forms and supports and running consensus and driving and making social showers and rapidly better the room source of right resources other policy buffers and the basic personalization of which optimism is strong other letters all letters into all the restriction and identifying strategies GC with the name created strawberry basic weapon processing of your social check with the young trending crops saturation housing is only a difficult project high other market and farmers which are on of pride dealing with the sense of limit access to see the production and particularly non-trending seasons your specific discourse your research your GPO passes a search for unique trades.
How's the coffee left? How's the coffee person just like
Yeah, so what happens with copy left? So it comes from like we just like impose copy left comes onto packs. This basically means like okay, well first copy left is essentially it comes from code. It's a form of copyright in which everything becomes like in an open domain. So you can't like enclose like your seeds, you can't like hold like exclusive ownership of anything, and anybody can like innovate off of it.
so it gets rid of the exclusive right over seed rights. And that would become open source, meaning anyone can innovate.
Yeah.
And
Essentially
they're not infringing upon it. Correct? Okay. So my next question was who gets like the copy left like seed varieties that would just be open to everyone.
like
Right.
anyone can have over
So no one would receive money for licensing.
one like
There's no money back in the
well you don't like own the thing. Like you don't own
So-
the idea of like a certain like you can like still sell stuff.
Right, okay, but it's just for the public. Got it. Solvency for the first scenario is the diversity one. How does copyleft decide the
Yeah, so right now a bunch of like there's like 6 main ad companies, one of them is Monsanto, I forget the other ones, but all of them just like hold a big monopoly over the seed industry. They're selling all the same seeds. For example, Monsanto sells like one corn seed, that's like all the corn we grow. So that's like killing diversity. If we get rid of like not pleased because of a coffee left, they don't like the idea of it, they don't want to close things, but also other vendors can enter the market, that means that things right now, like, there's like.
Okay, but there isn't any type of innovation that they're trying to do.
But one by making it so that anybody can really innovate by getting rid of the enclosures that like these big monopolies have, there's some more innovation.
Right, but if you get rid of these enclosures, that would just make the seed, like, seeds that these big companies that are selling, like, other people are able to sell them. I don't see how that's gonna be.
If everybody's selling the same seeds, no one's gonna like buy them, so it's either A, you just like continually lower your prices, or B, you just make a better seed.
Okay,
That's
what
what a lot
part,
of these companies want to do now, that
Sure.
they can't, because they can't fight on stock anymore.
sure, what parts that opens restrictions or
Well, it's kind of just like all the solvency, it's like, it doesn't like explicitly say, but if you want to specifically let it say, they say, sell and. So either A, the OCN or the well, lower your price on the items, make us better. That's why a lot of these companies want to now with their gas, because they can't fight on stock.
Okay, the second scenario is about patents in like the global south. What about the plan does like, things to patents and things?
I don't think it's necessarily about the global south specifically.
Patents on plant genetic resources in the southern world can jeopardize food security. That's the first one.
Oh, yeah, okay, well, I'll just answer quickly. It's basically just like when we, well, first of all, the last part of the solvency page that Howard Hammond says that one land is spills over, and so say that by using like environmental developments that exist in the US, that it's not like spill over, but not other countries involved as well.
I wanted to accept, it's 6 off, benefit.
Oh, yeah, the table.
Yes, right next to it.
It's basically like, well, no, it's more of the last part of the. It's all.
It's all.
No, I just like, it wasn't enough stand. Yeah.
Strengthening protection of IP means making IP acquisition easier, expanding the scope of protection, or increasing enforcement. First, first amendment of the MSP board to seek or multiple classes classified strengthening weakening to IPR the cookies to prior research concerning the reverse extended protection for the IRI to decision making. These require IPR to protection make easier for reverse research. Learning from first strength IP decisions opposite by weakening protection violation copy loss creates an open source exchange that weakens IP protection going at one limit window. This is carefully limit on top next supported by the limiting actually to being anything with IP topping any other information with the top multi-directional multiplying or research for the two argument division dealings are based on these are acquisition and scoping enforcement. They share they share access to all the that means you have to research to have good bad and then you have to good bad and soft and substance campaign access by the government. So the list against the increases domestic research and development based government subsidy for agriculture innovation and farm development research. That's also under the pharmacy innovation Europe approved the original for the finance department innovation must be done through public money based on house and agreed to by the Eastern farm or charging the urban government subsidies something less work 100% subsidy made their costs policy farmers. Targeting the make them getting help the next off the large campaign offset block road options or efficient relevant targets to cover and obligate the right to individual intellectual property. The power research and left no funds used, but that's all cases 30 the non-possible law of the US Code concedes as binding voice pollution. Lock in possible about $20 for verification bills over the sections to the new bill and bill Congress for former rating act also law addition then to be moved to enact all the negative ordinance bills not put all the state literature to some 15 months not less than various folks only to incorporate the amendment also this ordinance is the text of reason has to be edited destruction alter the pressure technical parameters both of the resolve begins make what you understand just number of pressure issue more flow pressure high level natural effective less than finding appears to be the relative text of the active position piece operation that turns every accent to risk well in point of the highlight needs revisions on the piece to word or technical versus the mythical versus on parts of and responsibility harder tackle access to risk the next off tax forward the budget passing Congress now, but Trump's push scheme the middle arrow for Senate. Trump's budget is 1.2 not there because often public define as the private more of the into the military and tax by having the basing or around the legislative momentum Trump's all on that's the bill I before James BC versus Canada Berkeley down. So like this has used by our bill incentives of diversity different incentives the bill from state legislature equally in order to look at the right contributions on IP legislative less than kind from the third kind from advices and take very long time really that's language of the not college and that passing budget fund home in this transfer 25 copies of Christian really also included I don't sometimes the media said everything included nothing for times I don't next to next gen this I just get only what that's copies to see that it's based as I have to say that here we have never center that's all through the world to China Russia Poland 25 home defense system possible necessary 20th century nuclear pipeline is in the background you can originally launch the Atlantic chance marketing nuclear arms for the past years as you can see that's the military force Taiwan wants to need to act on the resort to China Taiwan laws and times on which the US in the background I don't know but this is any fact US is only was less willing offense South Korea they need to take their own hands the building of the works the US I don't should I was hoping the military system can deter that's like a by Russian generals that's me uncertain contribution of the outside top security want to see massive realize of any psychic disaster any creation extermination resulting in perceive that's the order of things that is underlying effective force upholding security state 18 years into the code claims security that's a research underlying the draft climate change security US interests are security and research check or when the shared positive definition line based on the sometimes the great developments international security last year I think there are just crimes belong to that something security and security this is the something military is not body every continent both environmental fashion on nature fairly wide face of environment because the white nations of security the white experts of the environmental fashion political register operating environmental degradation ideology that's the military based on environmental policies but probably US military complex the expanding their policies of corruption counting the military crime security politics conservation genocide reject the one you see as well the security by American people by the chapter something like that administration American defense from something so such like problems of private leadership in the national security that state government that's very states. One AI innovation act is increasing now, including soil health monitoring innovation act, starting for past identification machine learning models, predict pest innovation have real device logic, that's how we say this AI pest soil health monitoring data, and graphs that use analyze soil content, like the water needs to automate irrigation to the pot X and build a pathway monitoring, those are data creative parameters, all the performance of weeds, those robots that identify weed onto the crops department of the robot itself, identify weeds, real time to know solve the open source program fields, help farm innovation works, business security investment. Increase regulation is personally speaking, working by 24 farms, active and sharing all the place on the farms in not simply farms in farms in the sewer for ground now we put a list. Otherwise, it's time on the production farms variety increasing farms innovation not helping always I want to less than means because more traditional use of the law price to the 3 food board is exception that's been 18. Let's talk about notions of concluding to confident. Most people are in institutions of price with their active use of high food price food control shortages resources from the like the construction and orange corruption that kind of reforms the agricultural Odin is fat kind of in the southern world, I even go south Africa. It's not solved domestically. The food high food prices now launches in off 24 food so much more expensive. Price up since 26 December and having productions labor food costs I can just have to say by the disease. Food comes out of making profitability and there's all costs of warming, very special big agriculture. Companies to know and so impact climate change compared to 24. I see it on top on farming point. Looks like the absolute value could be what you want to do what we say. What is 20% low cost and could be very low. I give the job the emergency based evolution radiation. Recently, the research already launched stands very high realistic that go more and more lowers the rate of the accuracy that country realistic impact to be much more moderate evidence by the warming by national variability evidence and go with that goes off aside over using quantums and our case priorities question for needs to find on the list the food issue defense and agriculture industry contribution to the agency business that's more regulation on food industry on agriculture and that goes off ag industry consolidation and farmers access to seeds for 24 that because increase competition, the issue, how competition rights, and by speaking with PTSD, the FCC, that it's the impact of the consolidation of the also partly this on the extending fairness portal, helps more to reduce the issue and access to exposure. I guess those determined by Bakery Trades, that's which also petrochemicals, IEA, for the future of the petrol issue, recent piece of possibility handles US, for example, the state communities, organization, even private agencies, recent conditions, worse, even petrochemicals, or future instances of innovation within the industry available options that eliminate or greatly reduce the need for including, go back to clock, one, backlog is slow down, reaching for overcome, cuts making room for the backlog of the leaving side of 20%, 45, forward backlog, each side of 25, turning forward, PPC, staff shortages, download courses, joining technology solutions, that is launching digital storage, into a shiny manufacturing 35% usage, no worries about delays moving the back, where they give responsibility for using technology as looking forward, I left on litigation, waiting by first might be a criminal open system compliance issue by this open system license may open the door to these bad possibility license private door license of the model, must be compatible with respect to medical device and the rest of safety that software used as machine to reliable software products, market products. Backlog in first course is short term oxygen, 150 years American Town Course, we decided agreements to screen constitution with the final state of the federal short term reporting case looking at backlog result, action limits for the overwork just to be delayed. For the course, where I will employ specific boxes, extinction people, so we should market governance, the more important the many things access to response usually we can have civil rights, human rights, only them that democratic governance, the box for August accountability, provide the vehicles as humans have to be tied bonds with these democratic policy, coming to the here, rather than just moving the national team, power the distributed group. Framing like one thing study maybe the framing of.
Wait, I understand how we possibly like, but I was like, don't you like also?
What
Read a bunch
like
of
why did the
reports
other off case not win?
Yeah, you read a bunch of like reports areas.
Yeah, well, one, we think that it's a question of this off case, we are allowed to critique different positions of the one C. Two, we think that if there's like a perfect argument, we'll answer that as a block. We think that consolidation in the two in our solves because we are forwarding a strategy of combating that securitization with the security average. So it's like even like that.
Oh, status of the.
Status quo is always low. Yeah, one, we think that this question of this off case, we are allowed to. If there's like a argument that consolidation. We are forwarding strategy of combating that securitization with the security average.
So what is what is why does the petrochemical industry go down?
We read a scenario about pesticides and petrochemicals, Dawson evidence says that petrochemicals are driving extinction minerals. I think that solving the status quo.
Can you explain this? Can you explain this?
Yeah, the counterclaims would insert a non-positive provision into the titles that basically does the like same protection as that, but it's not positive law, meaning it's not
Oh, so non-positive.
it's not binding. Yeah, so it's
So
not
people don't
binding.
have to follow the law.
Sorry?
So people just won't have to follow. The law.
We will make arguments about why that non-positive law will be perceived as binding, but it's not actually binding, so like that solves our internal benefit about polarization. Because it does
Why
not
is the
require
perception
congressional. Sorry?
What's the perception enough? If people just think that they don't have to follow it.
Well,
It's like on
yeah, so like our argument is that the courts and like other adjudicators would perceive it as a binding law, but does not have to go through congressional statutes. Our internal net benefit and the politics dealing are about why going through congressional reform to actually insert it into titles and statutes causes the polarization.
Okay, sure. Let's not say they don't have to follow it.
Yeah, so our argument is that the courts and like other
Not make the scope of protection.
yeah, so we think that there's a difference between like scope of protection meaning just allow a bunch of people to have access to something. We think scope of protection, as we have defined it, means that more things are being protected. So like the app does not increase the scope of protection for an individual IP owner because anybody can access that IP. The one NDCA prospect was like, yeah, none of these protections are exclusive, meaning that even if more things are protected, it's not a strengthening for the individual.
That's- Was it?
Yeah, it's like that.
That's weird. Maybe I shouldn't do it like that.
I think it's.
Yeah. The entire round, was it doing that?
Yeah, but it wasn't that.
Okay.
Whereas case, he strengthened the subsidies counter plan, the OLRC counter plan, security, politics that involved. Yeah. I think. Wait, yeah, just order. On-case monopolies are consolidating biomass security crop monocultures makes food accessible to small farmers. The plant sells varying biological materials applicable for calculus when they're local source domain and anyone can use them without patenting or payment. This applies to small farmers because they gain access to new technologies. They don't have to pay anything. And we know that they're like being infringed right now because big farms like Monsanto, all their seeds are going flying onto their farms and they're paying money. So we know that they have the money to end up investing. And then also on 1NC, on 1C1A, doesn't matter. They say themselves that farmers don't get investment either. They can't get air. They don't have the resource to fix what AI finds. And 1NC2, yes, innovation don't close. It means more confidence because people who can innovate without it, like infringement, there's no evidence that increased regulation of the plan. And 3.1, we say that there's yes food wars. We see it Dawson. That's exactly why World War II started. And also we see Russia, Ukraine. There's a food war going on right now. And then on 1C, that's on 1C 3 to 5, and then 1C 6 to 7. We say try or die. 2 we say yes extinction because monopolies. There are a bunch of seeds. We see it like right now climate change and all that stuff is going on. We see biodiversity going down in shape like golden seed. And then on 1C8, RFK words domain action. Republicans love monopolies. They went through that and it won't pass through Congress. Also, this says that if RFK gets into the office with the ag, he's currently in the Department of like public safety or something like that. He has nothing to do with agriculture or anything right now. He has no influence. And then across the apply that warranty to 1C9, they won't try to decrease monopolies. And then because monopoly is like they make a lot of money. And then on 1C10, Trump loves fossil fuel. There after the pre-election. And then on 1C11, monoculture, bad pesticides, climate change extinction. It's all the Dawson evidence, which says that it is currently unsustainable. There's no evidence that they read that says that it's unsustainable right now. So yeah, maybe that's okay. I'll go on to T strengthen. One, we need a function of accurate or foundational copyright licensing with underlying accuracy. There's no legal basis to impose with force or sharing requirement. The plan predicts the right underlying right that's been overall. And B, mixing burden rates and active bad advantage over the mix of the strength and active mixing burdens of justified zone negativity. Because the after German 2 production means enforcement of existing right. Name 14 production means very different things in IP law. In order to use protect and active means enforcement exclusive economic rights. Creation and IP the right to impose condition duties that accomplished by licenses faster capital 24. Direct IP rights a crucial value legal protection laws assessment of the strength of defense of the copyright. Including registration of validity and potential limitations of the value and strength of IP rights, reviews and licensing agreements that terms and conditions of restriction any conflicts or any duties that might hold the enforceability rights, and we need that. All farmers can all patents and see the planning seed lines enforceable copyright terms for identify. For millennial farmers exchange and allowed others to grow and reproduce it, then private companies to replace public property with the private open source and invite all to participate if they make their innovations available for further research and improvement. Patencies may provide and seed rights to Canadian terms of restricted commercialization, but it's not clear whether patent holder made the claim granted available under binding generally announced in terms of use another option would be not too further for not clear, however, to fail to enforceable ensure accessibility. The same practical factors available in the first place, open source accounting approach, resolving the tension committee and preferred a predicted on terms of the most consecutive grant. There's no basis for its line and storing practice spraying overpowered CPs and solves ground cover rights to enforce determines that act on ground. They can always impact on the enforceability terms of the reasonability protection of participation disputed channel 24. There are variations in critical aspects of responsibility, relative strength of protection, remains ongoing challenge comes with protection, previous delivery, and there's no difference accepted definition of variation, legislation, enforcement and administration on the subsidies counterclaim, we took from with from to the counter and compensation based purchase fail. They don't address the fundamental political and government of bioproduction appropriation, popular casing, sheets of industry, restricting accident materials that ought to have been shared. This is asymmetric and therefore address compensation of rose new protect for bioprice, no problem benefit and function legitimate. The exploitation really radical, will not payment but reach constitution that comes. But common heritage is not workable, maintain one intrusive free access to line reports, requires mechanism for the journal, saying that all sharing among those who reciprocally share, so those will not be needed is not the open access to commons, but a protect commons, the tool, the single open source, for mere open innovation rights to exercise to show to socialize acting the very mean of exclusivity, proposed license close to the form that IP are proven problematic, the critical difference, calculus that impede locking up its genetics, mark the card at genetics. And then on the OLRC counterplan, we took from to both from to the counterplan and cancel food safety concentration of power, technological solutions, exactly the root cause of ecological price, they're expensive, which empowers capital and perpetuate debt threats for farmers, that's Dawson. And then even without new tech requirements, plan IP subpoena that destroys communities through debt threats, which plan can address that Jenny. And two Socrates keys, sustainable food system must be adapted to local content. There are solution for IP, which is inherently imposes external prescription of a local food system, that's Jenny. And then IP is homogenizing for sustainable food system can't be built without addressing its role at J23. The OS hybrid resistant views and tools of dominant system create and enforce ethnic sharing enable those margin create their own space for resistance great alternatives unsustainable and unequal food regime the IPP are great all genetic diversity or mutually exclusive CPs technological changes cannot equalize alternative social relations for Article 21. All social and tech innovation are central to the transformation, attention, and innovation plus the ends of focus on material not is unsustainable material artifacts such as best fundamental problem, rather than social institutions practice that all to support those or new ways of organizing with new election principles are key innovation to reconfigure systems with no artifacts flow from those social practices on security. One priority, the judge should not have any consequence of the plan acts generated by needs of the negative speeds one time assumption should affect the assessment of probability of any consequence and state of fairness for an solution. And then on the top, all claims for errors of social transformation cannot succeed without technological autonomy. Sovereignty must merge with the socio-technical transformation of brand neoliberal capture. That's Dawson. And then our event takes as given this compromise on college Western IP. This not denied utility. IP is a continually effective tool to enable concrete viruses commuting. That's DeWitt Evans. And then threats are real. Scenario planning is going to be reached. Okay, politics can be reduced to meta question. Security is not a way to ethical harassment. Security is constitutional consequence. There remain conflicts and risks. This question of how to handle the underlying question regarding the price of ordinance. We point them to scenarios, the responsibility entails securitization, black and white. And then we also tell you from both that even if vertically compatible, the percentage outweighs contradiction, because the plan opens opportunities concrete in the neck. All practice of food sovereignty. That's key to decreasing securitization because if wars are like happening right now and we get food sovereignty, that means that there's going to be less wars and we end up decreasing threats overall and they're mutually exclusivity arguments or they aggregate move to monoculture to land sovereignty one by planting invisible we'll see we need to see which one first by adapting their so local sociological movement that Duran and Kloppenberg go on to the politics DA. One PC is made, let's just give the agenda Waldman 1 so what can be the Republican strategy down to weeks of restriction the month of the affordable we structured the month they done it before the industry dragged out the ACI. But PC is not something that exists part of any particular issue, specific issue report on policy, make it palatable. And the parts polarized PC is being meaningless. There's no accent by can draw turn on Republican, no votes in the yes. There's nothing to begin by putting up any Biden's agenda. Whatever you can do, he should do as soon as possible. And flood the blind can make it. And then BMD fails. Holdings 19. Use missile defense not effective. Cleanse system 97 is 97%. People assume multiple interceptors will be launched for every warhead because some miss but no real enemy would attack the people. Rush incoming missiles over defenses does not flow. We reduce the effective 97% to 0. Even with the thumb scale, MDA is now been able to shoot down missile attacks scripted for success failures not mounted. The quarterly system of the GMDS performance despite being authorized for success. Based on the record of alarming Bush Russia deployed, knowing it didn't work, choosing to fix the law of the spiral disaster and on clock. The plan reduced IP, might use IP's legal reform, which receipts which the plan can be exposed at Kloppenberg. And then the effect of the act is reduce the penetration of IP in the C market that's brand overall. And for the purpose of evidence, that means that the link is backward copying Rap 16. Although it was licensed for the governmental software, to see Scotland licensing results indicating a contract license patent or music suitable while then can use no one's allowed to if they release their development patent protection and first feed material release in the website license for their development, therefore can have the lease of trying to use IPRs and not availability for corporate reading and plan patents or skyrocketing level 24. Other floodgates open protection and plan variety that could be enabled by 2001 or 1800 to the patents can be used for plan varieties. I think private companies investment plan for skyrocketing 2.5 times increase in knowledge engineering quantum to companies that use IPR to strengthen their position because the PDO has overwhelmed the companies when they're this big old patent and they want to take money, shot and take someone who's paying attention to anything, the genetic engineering, the metro breeding, takes things are being patented, marked the card patented, and then we also tell you no democracy right now. We see with Trump, he's backsliding, he's putting a bunch of tariffs on countries that only pause for 90 days, but they're also gonna end up going back. He's also like authoritarian. Yeah.
The first argument our clause was that the plan reduces IP. We made multiple arguments on T about how you can increase IP. We reconcile that.
Yeah, so we're saying like the plan increases IP insofar as like we're increasing patents, but we're like decreasing the we're decreasing the amount that patents can be like that plans can be like enclosed by patents. So like we use IP's legal reform because we end up increasing patents. So we still need P.
Sounds good. We meet the like underlying right. What is this? Can you explain something?
The underlying right of IP is basically being able to release and own things. People are still able to own things and are able to innovate off of those things. It's just not there's no closure.
Okay, so what do you mean by people are still able to own things if it isn't open source or everyone has access? And it's
Yeah,
not
for example, people are able to sell seeds, people are able to sell.
sure, you can
crops.
sell seeds now, you can sell crops now, but how does the plan increase that?
We don't decrease that, we just.
How does the plan increase that?
Oh, how does the plan increase that? We say that it's easier for people to be able to like make new seeds because there's not some giant monopoly. to sell
Sounds
them
good.
that
Okay,
they make.
that makes sense. The reasonability card is in this next.
It just says there's no agreed on definition for anything that like anybody will ever read, which means it's better to just be reasonable and say our definitions are similar enough.
Okay. On case, the first argument you made was about how AI does not matter because the farmers won't be able to access it without money. How does the plan increase the amount of money? So like I know that the plan allows them to like have access to the innovation, but how do they afford that innovation?
We said two things. One, we're saying right now they're not able to afford it, so even if AI does exist. it's
Right,
not- I don't
like
really
post plan, how do they?
We say like currently there's a lot of infringements, which the farmers pay a lot of suits, like money in suits for, and then when we do the plan, there's less infringement, and like Monsanto seeds, they don't have to pay for them flying into their farms. So that gives them money to innovate and like.
That and also, yeah, the innovation itself, when people are selling new and better seeds, they're more likely to make money off of that because farmers want good seeds, so they're gonna try to buy those.
Okay, sure, politics, the Waldman evidence about PC from Biden and Biden shifting Republican votes, why does this apply in Trump era?
It's still just argument that says that PC is faded.
Which
The
part,
warranty should still apply,
yeah, which
because
part do you
of-
think is just about like PC broad?
just about what?
Which part of the card do you think is about PC broadly when it's applied to Trump?
Yeah, it's kind of, wait, what?
Like the only part I think might say that is like PC is not something that exists apart from any particular issue, guys like warrant why PC.
Because it's just like a general thing that like doesn't make like one policy like effective immediately. It's like the line immediately after what you read. Yeah. Theoretical.
C, politics TA, then.
Please, I'm sorry.
ORLC, politics, and then.
I'm good.
Anyone not ready?
Furthermore, the political organization, next collaboration, undermining effective response to external events like pandemic situation and nuclear coalition, they require unified cooperation. This goes wrong, active cooperation, that turns the case, becomes cooperation key to prevent forward. First is a turn to go that fails, one links to that benefit, includes positive law, which leads to polarization and links to the politics that benefit, then two, mutually exclusive and impossible to implement the plan is possible law, and not possible law simultaneously. That's project intrinsic as an additional process of verifying the statute or the plan to possible law, well, it only functions as a positive statute. For my conclusion, I learned also 35 legislative just drafting committee during drafting process. That is something you gotta find special reason of the party the issues of authority found later than additional supervision. The master by the redundant assembly not to because most accept the pretty topics there was already an average because to criminal sexual level and surgery and the second more than only exclusion on the Russian vision of the also that careful adopting next firmly Canada and several substance and for fairness allows after job of happens age of first laws of the intellectual property rights across the force of laws only 78 rights that interconnect with duties that they don't enforceable things to the state that existing and partial laws attacks of remedy. I the operation of requires statutory amendments to be published for one accurate protection of enforcement and related statutes of the laws of the legislative subject and interpretation. Even if the code is a summary of the law, not laws of was 19 and when laws enacted that even if public law statutes of laws for research or laws could find the United States code because provide the information evidence of the equivalent of such are law and legal office of laws a difference if you go to say they go to your office and show the code is not the code is not archers. The United States is a whole count is 194 the single number versus just the rather than the collection of property into the singularity production insurance so the need increasing capital authority the shorting of the time increasing it. These illegal process result is the instant item of an act means by law which the patient section court result is enacted by the nation of law and an act means that the Spirit 19 the enactment consists of will by the has to prefer to see the ground here to share stand the modification of for all of this. It's not a government it's an applicant. Explains the topic into the medical like declaration statements of the time and use resolution the adverse research and the topics are huge. It also solves regards to your immunity checks attached with law and will raise not review imaginary like constant condition but this counterplanning group of differences here. It doesn't apply to the ORC at all because it's not about specific to the ORC. It's just about the enactment. We would enact this we would basically enact the same thing as a plan, but through the ORC and not through the not without the force of law. None of the deficits are conjectural to it. So we saw 100% on politics. Passing the budget is key I just extend the homeland missile defense of the creation of the otherwise that known for knows existential that happens before all of their impacts because it includes the capabilities to escalate war, which is the impact didn't you want to see, and also happens much faster because warming and more water as well as food security takes months at most, but not having the missiles as key will mean that those escalate even faster than exacerbates it. Next, in this case, we say today, but Trump PC specifically key their evidence is about Biden, not Trump. He's a bold and experienced, essentially gratified for public tax analysis. Influence is not unlimited. He barely vulnerable and not like there is the last minute means that's not that still Trump has to keep roughly 31 the president of the public gets another vessel the president really one of the these types of laws to get Sunday now that we get percent of the doesn't it's fine and history Trump there are dimensions how really right there's even not from 7 versus the topic the there's so many ways to solve the government's been experience political government every so online and we personally want members from experiences or reality source and sustainable as a government and it's true consensus of studies show there's no money there's a doesn't know the one past conversation 35 relation to very successful government that's going to be having an unlawful president who consulted 9 months without a level for the everything the game government of the world public as a the president of the they say that the BMD did this so missile defense works thanks to recent advances that creating but it doesn't need to be perfect to solve our impact all our evidence is that it can't solve now but that evidence from 2018 here's some new evidence obviously missile defense are political which we saw 25% of the work that doesn't understand the reason missile defense are limited in the policy for nature or more advanced things as interpreters on me missile defense are going to be not separate criminals but that's evidence is better than more than the word doesn't assume a new takeover and never mind they're telling you that it is yes it doesn't have to have your peer networks and not people to like say it a little bit people of this year never read the book and article in the next like the new year money overwhelmed everywhere which we want figures will be money 1% is beauty but every set of 8 million $30 on each one which usually just about everything in the I don't know next case Activation is high increasing now that by projection or innovation structure model is not harmful innovation, small startups, formation, especially in encourage integrate AI to AI. That's what 24 and solve all of the diversity things. Activation is growing, working for the door. Solving the department to go with UC 85 only 1 billion and 4.8 billion companies are on the data basis. You feel further innovation, vertical formation, quality, creating new opportunities for university ag laws to the place for dynamic transformation, investment in innovative technology, and that's what we're recommending is massively increasing innovation now. UC 828 used to partner with the American business development and innovative domestic fertilizer for business Water improvement and also becoming built protection plans and more. Increase domestic fertilizer percentage by over 5.6 ounces. They say that they saw because they create innovation, but now none of their evidence says that. The evidence of the quantity needed process doesn't say innovation, open source increases innovation at all, which means they can't solve the perseverance. That is a burning issue, but they say that AI doesn't matter, but yes it does because farmers can't adopt the USC card. They read just so that they also drop copyright fails after open source criminals fail to solve farmer innovation. 3 warns us secure investment and increase innovation in the OSA is more complicated and increase reasons complexity makes it harder to access benefits. That here they drop this in one of your answers and independently the app doesn't solve food. When you see us pretty more conservative in the emerging process of the series of parts of the dark brother called the John Africa was ladder. There's already things like the both the community properties and the government. There's an addition support the Africa policy equipment. Go on the back of problems with that. Overship go class capitalism means they can't solve the food scenario because that's their often their author. The food security scenario. Some food shocks and publics do not have a clear empirical link. History from results. Shock with the food security is not reverse casual war. That's the best we part in. Pharmacy doesn't act with tons of other factors like massively like economic destruction and forcing Germany to take German reparations, but Russia and Ukraine don't count as well because yes they came out of food war later, but it doesn't take out Russian aggression and expansionism at all. But no, food wars appear first and more. They never look at this stuff. They're not very one way from there's the war. The other evidence supports everything like what's not. They remember on the student and all the way down. Probably not sufficient and food system and then basically not confident dude is about rotten regime in the southern world. I think the global south, the average domestic doesn't solve. No, some of our claims the word hate us because of Trump and terrorist zero evidence of solve that conceded out of the HUAC and food prices down food, high production labor and food stuff. The riddle through every aspect of the food system, the laser reference severe weather disease and food from scrutiny as that, but was consider they're internally thus the entire scenario next to their climate change stuff. They drop the deep end zero level solvency, want to see since they innovate but that was above. Climate change not existential legacy models, overestimating critical studies of equilibrium climate sensitivity due to natural variability distributed as being and people is that the drop this completely. It doesn't none of their evidence assumes any underlying cause, and there's no developed analysis of the impending global disaster caused by man-made greenhouse emissions. So you automatically are skeptical, but there's no water or there. 88 since the evidence of shared water scarcity now the vertebrates cause water. I'm not yet identified is unlikely to cause conflict with higher than the solution is negotiable. And next is the pesticide overuse stuff for the first scenario. Disaster solve pesticide overuse for all RV laws. One good thing is making priority in 25 to reduce the use of pesticides in domestic agriculture. He's given free reign to increase restriction in the area that more human health act. Collective only viewer evidence on the question, but I'll concede here that that Republicans hate monopolies and that guarantees the link on the policy CA and they conceded it anyways, but like zero here. They said it themselves. And extend the monoculture stuff. They do not cause mass popularity and community diversity, which say they're good. That's the money the evidence of it. Goes on better. Act on the community innovation. It's not pretty bad for legends to increase and offer people through the by increasing every investment as possible for and innovation on the legends and increase often in the past. Still the lower running fees, the regions ever more so than the battle history, so large increase in profit. Fast and key activation actually from one activities of all the products and that money key activism has for your financial investment process and activities financial short records. That means only happens in the scope. It's all innovation. They have no innovative mechanism. The entire first scenario is predicated off of increasing the diversity and innovation, which they don't solve. Only patents and the animation thing solve that. I would cross.
On the OLRC public plan, how can it like not be law except it's still separate?
Sure, we read evidence that when the ORLC agency enforces things, it does not contain the force of law. And that is key for the gap.
Okay, so who does the counter plan then?
The ORLC.
Okay, wait. So like, what agency do they have to like enforce the law if they're like not the law?
Correct. That's the first of all, the counter plan gives them enforcement to have something similar to the force of law, which would mean the plan would still be enacted.
Okay.
It's not the force of law, but it contains the force of law. But I mean, excuse me, it's not law that contains it has the force of law due to that.
Okay, on the VMDs, do we have VMDs now? Or like in the status quo, do we have?
We think the DA's funding is to realize that. That's what all of the evidence I said below, specifically the issue 25. And there's also the evidence that I read says specifically that innovative capacity, like capabilities in the past couple of years about space and missile defense have been proving effective. So that gives us the capabilities to expand it further, but funding is key, which the tax reform bill is key, the reconciliation passage is key to give funding for missile defense.
On case you say no climate change, what does that get you in the context of the ground?
Sure, you made a scenario about like climate change and water scenarios, if there's zero evidence that like these like IBC models are exaggerated and that there's very little climate sensitivity, and this proves like all these tipping points and everything, that means that like either these like entire virtual wars that you say that will happen, like there's a long time before that, because there's no compelling evidence that there is like an impending global disaster.
Okay, why does that matter if the act says that like we don't solve climate change, but we solve like some of the effects of climate change? So like, doesn't that just mean that climate change happens and then there's a risk of solvency for the act?
I mean, it's defense, so it's still defense. You've conceded that top level thing that climate change is not correct. But that is a straight concession from the chiefs.
Yeah, but climate change happens though, right?
No, according to the evidence, like drop it.
Okay. Or like not like extinction level climate change, but climate change in like a shell.
You're the one that like, yeah, like the world is warming, sure, but we're saying that that massively decreases the scope of your, like, the likelihood of your impact.
Okay, cool. On the USDA 24 evidence, what is the government doing around ag right now? Like
Sure.
for small farmers.
Yeah, so it talks about working with independent business owners to help them modernize equipment, adopt new technologies, and like that would include like seed technology and innovation that you're talking about, build production plans and a lot more. These are independent business owners, so they wouldn't be like monopolies. They're just granting to a bunch of like American farmers for like fertilizers.
I think. Security pay. Subsidies counter plan. The clog DA. T.
And I'm sorry, security.
Security, subsidies. Clog. T. Let me know. Security can see the protest competition, any QVC reasons to reject the argument team, subsidies can see the protest competition, clock can see no democracy, Trump saying it out now, Bruce Diaz, non-unique digital often tier T. Topical acts must strengthen IP protection by making IP acquisition easier, expanding the scope of protection, or increasing enforcement for infringement, vote neg 1, political limits, limiting the acquisition scope and enforcement process from turning multi-directional, exasperating neg, but research running, exploding limits to argumentation, links are based on acquisition scope and enforcement, we lose clog, econ, oil, damages, straight up politics clog, air neg on the topic, no unifying neg, generics independently, the intermixes research, both sides, IP good, bad, all the negatives uniquely vulnerable, they say the Tracy one was we need to function underlying, they don't need to ask, does not make IP acquisition easier, expanding scope protection or increasing enforcement, no warrant for highly protected underlying IP right. Here's what the plan does, they take all existing IP protection, put them under open source regime, the very first part of the one sees as quote, apps are currently used as a form of enclosure, eradicating local seed varieties. That means that the plan only shifts existing protections to allow other people to have access, which weakens protection that has no net effect on IP protection, because IP already exists now, it's not straight to IP one acquisition, no IP is an exclusive right, they create public ones, which does not mean to its scope protection, they are increasing the scope because protections are already increasing more technologies that are not protected now are not uniquely protected post Act reinforcement. There's none because everyone has access to it. Like the 180 cross and 180 cross changing or ownership of the right does not meet. There's no manufactured IPR. Only we have evidence. Man, something which according to the decision that regulate ownership something the scope the ownership protection we and this case of the debating on being owners to change the ownership situation. The core question is identifying on direction IPR. Man, something that the given decision IP protection was determined on net effect of IP within the scope of respect to the issue and not simply based on whether those change from status quo. They say mixing words disclose that to win their definition, they have to win that people actually join the licensing regime because of the creation, because of the creation that shift of IPR to copyright, that's copy left on its own is not increase. They have to win that every single person would join the IP, would join the regime. 2, even if they win that, still does not meet. That was above. 3, not mixing burdens. Our interpretation is that it is about the mandate of the plan. They do not mandate an increase in protection or increase in the strength of that IP of existing IP protections. 4, links to limited ground proves that we have to research both sides of the topic. IP good, bad, that'll be below. But their argument was literally that they have read an entire advantage about IP bad, which is unpredictable because every next team, every team in the countries is going into tournaments, thinking that they have to perhaps IP bad and that all has to be IP good, which proves that they expose limited ground. Now, they say protection and the DACNY evidence is wrong. 1, they do not meet this interpretation. Their evidence says quote exclusive economic rights. That's not the plan. They are not an exclusive right because anyone has access to it under the licensing regime. That was cross and above. 2, Mandel is more predictable. It's a meta-analysis that explains what is weakening IP in terms of what is weakening and strengthening. That is, it has an intent to include and exclude and it has an intent to exclude, which their evidence does not. Their evidence does not say it has to be an existing right. Just that it has to protect rights. Now, it also limits any because their interpretation justifies any change to an existing right. They strengthen one type of IP for one type of person that's already existing, which is topical under their interpretation. Now, the same conditions of use. 1, it's not applicable. Faster Capital 24 is not an accredited institution. It's not in the context of changing collection of IP. It is not an analysis of court cases. 2, the evidence is that you must evaluate how licensing agreements affect IP, but expanding those licensing agreements is not strengthening even if those affect IP. The plan it does not say that you have to increase the protection of those licensing agreements. 3, it links any existing licensing agreement. Strengthening is key. That was above. They say seed licensing, they say they meet that interpretation because seed licensing are enforceable, but making seed licensing enforceable on copyright does not matter if those rights are already enforceable now. The plan just shifts to other people, which is about they say predictability, restriction is Mandel's best A classification. Mandel classified every decision let's use this country makes it easy to determine what software will be translated language. Mandel uses best language in context. This is where everything comes from. That's Mandel's key expertise. Comes from Mandel's leading expert IP protection of the year, including the most credit cited by the Court of Appeals in the U.S. Supreme Court presented by USPTO. The best analysis is Zimmerman's one. Mandel's findings are comprehensive. They say over the many cases proofs you don't patent get all eligibility, other change to acquisition, and injunctions to other kinds of apps up here, ag software, space quantum AI has any sector means copyright, apps like military contracting software, acquisition trademarks, apps like e-commerce, and section 230, they get fast track program after in every subset there works a links exposure outweighs a private links including cause undeveloped debates, undeveloped ultra generic to groups talking education, be intercessing, motivated for the same assets and foster iterations, best talking education, see app side by first last speech, even if more will talk for the next stays all ground, the one irrelevant, there's no way to impact on enforceability because Apple will always be over prepared for that debate. There's not a unified generic where there are multiple types of apps that can break two after by music both times are protected, but there's no four politics regions ban IP okay, because we don't have the links. They don't link this every app requires an in-depth research revival strategy. There's no topic accountability like the past 2 years. They say for reasonability, they're not reasonable. The 3C had no work for what reasonability is. They just run the card, which means that you should assume you don't know what reasonability is. They're not reasonable. The disparity between rights and truth. They're unreasonable. The sum of all computation apps open the floodgates overriding the neck, making interpretation is good. A model comparison. It's the only way to establish that's reasonability in the first place. B zero is the measure. Their intellect ideology override integrity. Their evidence is also assumed by many others violation cards. We can argue mention the compulsory licensing government licensing has local firms.
Let me send that out.
Wait, what?
I'm sending out.
I didn't start with that, I guess.
That was.
There's no F, by the way. So it's gonna be. It's gonna be, it's it's gonna be case, OLRC, T, and then politics.
Case ORC politics.
Case, OLRC, T, politics. No. It's always outweighs one, any risk extinction means you always vote after the moment you see them have like any sort of solvency, which I'll go to later, like you vote for us, like it's basically try or die, extinction always outweighs one, it's irreversible, and two, everybody dies, which always outweighs on scope, all the arguments about like polarization and like, and what is it? Oh, there's a oh yeah, and like WMDs is like basically irrelevant at this point, because one way to say that any sort of like insecurity from food means that like that means that there's like more of a chance of war, like which basically means that like all their impacts should. And the second we say polarization is like if anything A is happening right now, which means we should already see the impacts, or B, the aftermath of causing more polarization because of lack of food, which will probably make people like more unstable and more likely like hate the government, which means there's gonna be more polarization because people like just don't trust us anymore, which means that extinction happens no matter what. But even then on like time frame, we see like we have literally 60 harvests left for the Dawson evidence goes whole conceded that means you're always voting for us because it's like try or die if you want to end up like solving extinction within like a few years, but like on like the case proper. Oh, just like group all the ag innovation stuff. It's all about increasing monopolies, using like by like using more chemicals in ag right now. That's a reason to vote after one. Any risk of solvency means a try or die. And also there can't be like small forms like innovation with policies that are literally increasing monopolies right now. Also the USDA stuff's only about like $35 billion like dollars, which even if that was good, it wouldn't be enough to solve back for anything. 1 and C2 copy left does solve the ban overall thing. Is the ban like overall indicted is really bad. It's just like it just takes too long. But we'd say all that stuff applies to their counter plans. Also it takes too long to do like basically any of what they're doing. Also we'd say that beyond checks we're talking about a hypothetical implementation, but on 1 and C3 we don't need to kill capitalism. If anything, like we do break down capitalism enough and ag, which solves because we're trying to decrease monopolies and trying to decrease like the control they have over the market right now. But UG's evidence on the OLRC thing is also full conceded since that monopolies think that all of this is like really toxic, which means they're never gonna try and go into it on the first place. We can see all the food war defense we're not gonna go for, but you know, we see there's still food wars no matter what because people feel really unstable. All that war is full conceded about the scenarios completely drop. We need diversity to live for like one main reason, because that's kill planches. Because like the chemicals are super bad, which means that if we don't have food, we're gonna end up like starving to death because of extinction. Also, like all the climate change stuff is really bad because like pesticides are killing the plants and chemicals are really bad. And like that's like yeah, that's bad for climate change because we're gonna go see for that too. Although NDCA stuff is irrelevant, we don't say anything on that. All they have left is the IPCC thing. It's really bad. Their models don't do enough to account for any sort of increase in pollution now per their own evidence that they agreed on case on the OLRC. They can't solve for food and sovereignty. It's co-conceded one's concentration of power, psychological solutions that exacerbate the root cause of agroecological crisis. They're expensive, which empowers capital, perpetuates debt traps for farmers. That's Dawson. Second, even without a new tech requirements plan IP is sufficient to destroy communities through debt traps such a plan can't address. That's Jenny. And third is sovereignty is key. Sustainable food systems be adapted in its local context. It requires a solution for IP which inherently opposes external prescriptions. All the local food systems. That's Jenny. And also the J evidence is conceded. It says that monopolies think that coffee left is completely toxic. They're going to try and leave the environment. IP is a homogenizing force against these monopolies. Sustainable food systems can't be built without addressing its role like in ag. And then on like the perms, one perm do both. There's no reason why we can't. They just say it's not about like the rule of law. But like honestly, you're still using a legal system to enforce it on the severing stuff. Like it doesn't sever. We're still like passing it through a sort of like legal system on T. When we need a function IP register foundation, the copy left licensing without the underlying right, there's no legal basis to impose or enforce a sharing requirement. The plan protects that underlying right that's banned overall. Then we increase protection because we help smart farmers get seeds. The counter plan doesn't solve because it doesn't create OSI, which is key to stopping imposing infringement. It begins mixing burdens. We run an IP battle management mechanism is still strengthening IP. Mixing burdens is bad. It justifies putting neck on team because the app drops rollback and people joining like the licensing regime because people want seeds of money and government isn't enough because they support pesticides and that's not enough money. Like the two that's like their own like 2 into USDA. And it's also we can say if anything like people are required to join it because that's how the law works. It's not like oh nobody's gonna follow the law. That's not how it works. Also, we say protection means enforcement of existing right. Dagny 14 says that the usual definitions are wrong, like the ones that they misinterpret such exclusive rights. And Dagny is predictable because it's a literal dictionary definition of rights to impose conditions of use that's published by licensing and Pastor Capital 24 says no enforcement valid. We need that farmers can hold patents and see that when it makes sense. Let's still enforceable on copyleft terms. And Ragnet 5 says that solves ground. That's like Ragnet 5 and that solves ground because how rights to reports determines our economic value and that can always impact any enforceability in terms of use to reasonability, protection, strength, capacious and disputed, and that's the channel 24 M's variation of final legislation enforcement administration. They also get generics like Haplog and politics. That round proves that app's predictability. Some politics stuff. Okay. On politics, Trump isn't real. Graham 19. I'll send this card after. I'm sorry. No percentage of the Trump is an indefensible. Genius show for it is. Trump is a pulpit. Is not. It is clear that Trump's pulpit as a belief that Trump is having education and learning how to marshal the power more effectively. And BMD fails had terrible success rate in the U.S. is only self-serving and hype MIRBs and their capacity. Greco 18. Genius was to say for Republican reliability is anxious simple threats, but prospect not bright for make sure that for not improve over time. Like it just continues to failure modes is efficient has exo vehicles are problematic. Okay. Yeah, I'm setting it right now. Public facade.
Or OC plan. And then it's
Wait, alternate ORC please. Right. There's no, oh yeah. Okay, good. They completely conceded the DA tax cleaner, they didn't answer any of our any of the public cards in the UNC, which means the risk of the DA is super high. Extinction is inevitable without homeland missile defense. Western China developed hypersonic missiles like eviscerate American cities to threat other use alone and names nuclear corrosion. Only missile defense restores to deterrence globally. That the Ukrainian card they drop, framing that massively turns the out because inadequate missile defense systems and nuclear coercion escalates all their war scenarios because it means that Western China are more likely to engage in war because American missile defense is lacking completely and is super old. Also, we went on time frame, we see also dropping some makes because our scenarios, because first of all, our turns case makes their scenarios happen faster and quicker, but also biodiversity takes decades. Biodiversity losses have been happening for decades, so for it to become an actual impact where it causes any type of extinction or war would take decades more. And some PCA this is all dropped on the friendly picture of the getting you in the 2AR, but I'll send my Trump PCA here. He's involved in experience and using it now. That's the most important thing. He's successfully ratified Republican stuff now, but his influence isn't limited. He literally was able to call hardline Republicans last month with proof that he can use VC that's effectively, but it's limited. That like the rebel evidence and the hockey evidence, he used it in the final race in Florida and Stephanie during the second term, which means he can use it effectively. And also it's true because Virus Site 3 studied that political capital is real over several presidencies, supporting that, and they literally said empirically proves that supporting a piece of legislation championed by an unpopular president literally leads to results in negative consequences because Congress is aware of president's approval and acts accordingly. That also is bolstered by the Madonna evidence. The card they read is not, first of all, this is a new argument, so strike it off the flow, mistag about Trump not being able to use PC effectively. Not that PC is fake, but their evidence from his last term where he wasn't able to use his PC effectively, but he has the experience now, so we can now. And we're winning the uniqueness claims that he's using Trump PC now. We have more examples from this term alone that he's deploying it effectively. So Trump is deploying his PC now. So outweighs because only our evidence contextual. We've conceded the link on case that monopolies are super controversial and that Republicans love them. So I'm super mad about this. So it's not a question of the link or the internal link that becoming solved. It's a question of the impact defense now. But missile defense works thanks to recent tech advances. That's great, but it doesn't need to be perfect. All variants societal or political which we solve and it's trying to die with their impact zone because for America because may not stop every missile, but some defense is better than ignoring it and reduces the scope of their existential war impact system. About all their evidences about past missile defenses. It was first tested in 1990 to establish that reconciliation is key to funding it and boosting American deterrence and missile systems, which definitely solves all their defense. Extend the Hitchens and the McGregor card. Experts have literally confirmed that tech is readily available. It just needs the funding to realize it. Next is Oral C. They conceded that the non-binding positions of law that we see as law, but don't go through congressional statutes, which avoids the policy that benefit. Every deficit was about the counterplan not having a binding provision, but when it does, the part of the release that benefit, no shielding argument is 2 or 1 ER. Using congressional statutes requires legislators to vote on the applicant of bill through Congress. That triggers widespread backlash. The NDCA would have conceded that IP is unpopular on the DA, only arguing the 1 ER was that it uses the legal system, drop subjectivity, plausible, non-plausible valid. That's a 2 trust card that says inclusion of the claim creates fights over whether the law or the code should be authoritative and instead of progressive destruction of the code is only solved by government code to create a flashy law instead of actual. They win the program jump, give the counterplan drop, that the scope is always a logical option, and they drop that from the counterplan coverage. Someone says that IP requires force of law when it simply doesn't have, the counterplan is not part of the UC. A lot of the allows the act to be a definition of statement, and they definitely drop it here, and the constitutional power deficit is wrong. The counterplan solves to the evidence of the OSC currently has the authority to serve as a law or revision committee, but not the capability to administer it, as obviously not exactly playing sufficiently framing solving some of the plan is enough to solve the politics impact on case. It said that ag innovation is high increasing now, like our IPR or open innovation structures is not home runs innovation, that's sorry 24 evidence. Their internal link is about the diversity, which means innovation is key. Others open source can't solve. software because they dropped the two cards at the bottom that says add crime prevention of key to innovation. That's the Discounted 22 evidence and the XC21 evidence that say the key to realizing investment in active ingredients because the initial placement of the patent allows venture capitalists to secure investment for innovation that increases diversity. That was dropped coming out of it. They've also dropped the copyright fails warrant from the Gamir Court that open source does not uniquely secure investment, which is all we need to win to solve the advantage. The entire scenario is based off of the diversity, a diversity of seeds. If you don't, if you can't innovate and increase diversity through open source system when they conceded to the Gamir Court not being able to secure investment, that means they can't solve anything. That means the school is preferable because ag innovation is hard. And they also dropped the USDA evidence because they say it doesn't solve for small farmers, but it simply talks about 35 billion for small farmers, which is more, it's better than their option. That is still the scope, even if it's not a lot, it's still a bunch because it all goes to small farmers within the US.
Order is case DA counterclaim. On case monopolies are consolidated back and very common monocultures makes food accessible to small farmers, plant cells by making biological materials available for capital when they're in the open source domain and anyone can use them without having own way. One magnitude extinction outweighs, always outweighs, zero personal never dies. There's no extinction scenario for them because they just read WMDs. However, one, they can't even ensure that a strike occurs in the first place, which means that we don't even know if there's an extinction scenario then. But also, there's no evidence that the US strikes back, so there's no extinction with their scenario. And then polarization, they don't even extend polarization, so it doesn't matter. The missiles aren't even stupid. They say themselves that the systems don't have to be perfect to stop the war, which means that the system that we have now should be sufficient or we'd already be dead. Also, just keep extending the budget, so that always checks. And then wait, where is it? And then on the ag innovation high right now. However, this is really bad because that evidence says that it's going to the small farmers to promote petrochemical and a bunch of pesticide overuse that accelerates the biodiversity impact, which is very bad because that means that we have more climate change, but we see more seed variety decreasing, which is very bad because that means that we have less food being grown and a bunch of people end up starving and a bunch of so it's stable. What's more stressful?
Oh, because there's more tension because you don't have food.
Yeah, there's tensions, which means
It's
that
try or die.
it's try or die because there's a bunch of tension. And then they also say that VC funding funds the farmers. However, we say that's bad for the same reason. Funds petrochemical consumption, which is not good. It just accelerates the effect. So that was and then on copyright, we're not copyright, so it doesn't matter. And then they extend the USDA evidence, which is 35 million. However, it's just still for petrochemical consumption. And all the responses are very bad. What? Yeah, and then also we tell you we can see the Woodward defense biodies drop because we need diversity to live, and then pesticide kill the plants because the chemicals are bad. No food means to starve and go thing. And then the only thing that they have is that the IPC wait, what? Yeah, is that the IPCC is bad. It's bad. Their models don't do enough to account for the only increases in pollution right now. And then group all the ag stuff. It's all about increasing monopolies and use more chemicals in ag. That's the reason to vote ag because any risk of assault means try either can be a small farm innovation with policy that increased monopolies. Also, the USDA evidence. Yeah.
And also there's more innovation.
Yeah, there's more innovation with small farmers because they actually want to have the money, but insofar as the plan makes the OSI and stops infringement from the small. Yeah. Oh yeah, there's more investment because investors feel like there's going to be less infringement, which is very good. Go on to the DA. David, did you send it? Send it. On the DA. On the DA, saying that Trump PC doesn't matter. Insofar as our opponents are saying that he's using his PC right now, but insofar as that means that he's already gonna utilize all his PC, so we say it doesn't matter. But even then, you say that the plan doesn't even matter because the Republicans they control everything, so the PC doesn't matter in this context because it's just always the Republicans they control the majority, they can always pass the funding. But also just extend the argument from the 1AR, which is that we can just end up increasing funding over the long term, which solves better matter which salts are like the same because we still get the PMDs. I'll send me the like other stuff for the plan. And then on the impact of the PMDs, like no matter the PMDs that they talk about, no matter insofar as the current ones work, they already like prepped for hypersonics insofar as like it's a like technology that Russia already has, the US is already prepared for it. All their evidence already isolates that. So we just tell you it doesn't matter. And then the time frame, it doesn't turn case because the effects of biody happen right now. Biody like might not cause extinction, like the animals might not go extinct. Like immediately, but insofar as we see the impacts, so we see the animal species declining right now, and we always need to act like immediately to try to stop it. And then on the counter plan, cancels food sovereignty because the one concentration of power, the technological solutions exacerbate the root cause of agro-ecological price. They're expensive, which empowers a capital and provides great debt trust for farmers. That's a Dawson evidence. Insofar as the debt trust, that means that the farmers can actually end up innovating under the OSI, like if you do the counter plan, because they just have to spend all their money getting out of debt. That's why the app plan is preferable, because the plan gives the farmers enough money to like end up innovating in the first place. And then like the plan IP is sufficient to destroy communities through debt traps, which the plan can't, which the plan can address. That's a Jenny evidence. And two, sovereignty is key. A sustainable food system must be adapted to the local context. It requires a solution for IP, which inherently imposes external prescription local food system. That's a Jenny evidence. Yeah, they just say that the IP is unpopular and the permanent counter plan servers, however, like the plan is popular, and also we just tell you it doesn't matter. Insofar as Republicans always just end up passing. What? Yeah, and then we also don't sever from the counter from to the counterbilling because one still passing a plan through a legal system, and then also like we tell you do both, they completely drop it on the one on the 2 and R, which says that like because it's still using the legal system, and so far as that's true, you can just still do both, and yeah. And then also extend that IP is a homogenizing force and sustainable food system can be built without addressing its role as like adjacent conceded monopoly, saying that copy left is toxic, which means that they just die out. Yeah. Like, on Thursday.
Oh, no.
No comments.
Look.
Is the round done though?
Yeah.